After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Build Connected. I'm Adam,
And on pace.
and we're about to get after it. We're on episode 22 and moving like a freight train. Here
Yeah,
we
that's
go.
right.
How was your weekend, Pace? What'd you do? What'd you get up to? You see what I did there?
I
I
did. I did
care.
a lot of cleaning around the house, a lot of chores. I got a couple of projects underway here. So I actually don't think I left the house. I was working all weekend. How about
Okay.
you?
Man, it was an action-packed weekend. My daughter turned 17 and she's been driving for a year. She has thrown out there that she wanted to split a car with us, and after a couple of months of discussion, my wife and I decided we would make it happen and surprise her on her 17th birthday. And we did that, and it was awesome. What a surprise. And she got the keys to her new car and she added them to her giant keychain. Now, Pace, quick question. How many keys do you have on your keychain?
One.
One. I mean, it's not even a keychain, right? Minimalistic, right? You don't want a bunch of keys rattling around your pocket. I don't know what
It's
it is with the.
well, it's a
Yes.
place for one key and one little Bigfoot figurine.
Okay. Well, there's this common theme going around with that the kids are doing these days, and it is like giant keychains with all kinds of stuff hanging off of it. I mean, she's got like this thing that goes over your wrist to hold your keys, and then it hangs down, and she's got like a little placard, and she's got keys and all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's what the kids are doing these days.
Yeah, I
Six,
think
seven.
all the kids want to be janitors. I think that's the message here.
You, you
I
get
saw the video of the car, receiving the car, and it was amazing.
yeah.
Like the moment when she lost her mind. She totally lost her mind. She ran out of the garage down the street, and I was crying. I was crying, laughing.
Yeah, that would go viral. We should post that.
Yeah, no doubt.
You missed my 6-7. Do you see what the kids are doing? You know what this means? I don't even know
Li-
what it means. My kids come
Like
home and
you're
they
too
start
old.
talking.
You're too old to understand any of this. You just said your daughter's 17. You're halfway to an empty nest and being a granddad. That's where you are in life, my man.
This was my favorite one. Yesterday, my youngest kid, she said some smart aleck thing to me, and she goes, "You've been clocked," and this is
Ooh,
the symbol for you've been clocked.
that
Anyway,
sounds right for you.
I
Yeah.
like that. Anyway,
All right. What are you going to
enough of
talk
that.
about?
Let's get let's let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we? We're gonna get into products. It's our first theme of the podcast here. Products that we like, that we love. This is a little bit more broad, right? I'm going to talk about a specific kind of product that's used in building, and maybe not necessarily a specific manufacturer of a product or that sort of thing. But the topic is rain screens. And when we talk about rain screens, it's a portion of your control layer on the outside of a house. So maybe in previous podcasts, you've heard us discuss control layers, right? You've got the framing of your house, and then you have some wood sheathing, which is, your plywood product of some sort over the framing. And then you have a waterproofing layer, right? That's one control layer. Then you can do what's called a rain screen layer. And the rain screen is really about controlling water, bulk water. Um, and so what happens is when we have cladding, which is siding on our houses, water seeps in through the gaps of that siding. Whether you know it or not, it's getting in there. Stucco, same way, very porous material. So let's take an example. We put in a siding product on the house, and if we attach that siding product directly to that waterproof membrane, we've created a water trap. Water gets in, it can't get out, and that's when rot happens and that sort of thing. So what we want to do is we want to install rain screens, and a rain screen, all it is it's providing a gap between the back of your siding and the face of that waterproof layer and allowing water to drain out the bottom. And that's the gist of it. So when we talk about rain screens, there's lots of different kinds of rain screens out there. There are They come in rolls that are like this matrixy material. I don't know what you could compare it to. You're pretty good with that sort of thing. If you got something real quick, what do you got? Matrix
Waffle iron.
waffle iron. Say what?
A waffle iron, right? It creates a matrix of nubs, little
Waffle.
nubs.
I don't know
So
what
if you
a.
took a
Oh
waffle
yeah,
iron,
waffle iron. Okay.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I like that. A waffle iron kind of thing. Yeah. A layer of nubs, right? Another way to make a rain screen is to actually cut strips of wood that are a quarter inch, 3/8 thick. 3/8 is kind of the number you shoot for. And it creates that air gap for water to get in and drain out. It lets your houses last longer. You don't get that wood on wood contact trapping water, and it's the right way to build. And it's an approach that we take with all of our homes that we build these days. So no specific product that I would really name. There are things that we like out there where you can buy a water barrier that is integrated with your rain screen. It's an integrated all-in-one product, right? We have these peel and stick products that not only keep the water out, but that provide that rain screen all in one, which are pretty nice. Um, and I might as well name one because we use it a lot, right? It's a Benjamin Obdike. It's a blue skin material. They call it blue skin, and it has those little rubber nubs already built into it, and it's a great product because the labor is all done in one step. You peel it off, you put it on. I know that sounds easier than it really is. I go on and on. Enough of my spiel. Let's get back to your talk, shall we?
Well, no. I'm gonna add on to this a little bit.
Oh,
So
okay. Good.
just a couple of points of clarity here. From the scientist's point of view, right? The rain screen is doing two things for you. There's drainage first and foremost, which handles your bulk water that you're talking about, but there's also drying, and so the depth of the rain screen layer uh, determines what you're doing, right? So a lot of our dimple mats that we're using, they're only, between a 16th and an eighth. I don't know what the exact number is. And you don't, technically you're not getting drying capabilities with that. I think you need to hit that minimum 3/8 of an inch to get the drying part of a rain screen. And the reason you're going for that is just so you can keep the conditions on both sides of your cladding as even as possible, and that just lets it wear longer, right? So if you have one side that's constantly wet longer than the other or constantly colder than the other, you start to get warping, you start to get movement in the actual siding. That's affecting the board, but it's also impacting the paint that you have on the outside of the cladding. So if you can get that drying ability behind your cladding, it just extends the lifetime of not only if it's a plank, not only the plank, but also the paint that's on the outside of it. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, we've seen that on lots of jobs, right? We would come to a new project that we're about to begin, and there's no rain screen. They've got their siding up, and there's bubbles in the paint, right? And that's because that water gets trapped behind the siding and it has nowhere to go. That moisture pushes through to the face of that board and can create that bubbling. So, but you also talked about two things, right? You talked about kind of drainage plane and drying capability. So those are two different things, that the greater the space, the more capability you have for drying is really what it comes down to. Um,
Yeah. And I think on top of that, like it's not only the space that allows air to move behind the board, it's also having an exit on the top and the bottom so that you can really circulate air around the cladding. And so it's part of a system, really. And I think that's true of like everything we're trying to do with our houses is having a system approach,
yeah,
period.
it's funny. 10 years ago, I could drive down the street and I'd see houses go up, and people would be putting Tyvek on, and the siding would go on. And I don't think maybe wouldn't think too much of it. But now things have changed so much so quickly, that if I see that now, I'm just shaking my head. How can somebody do that?
Yeah, you're saying 10 years, but that's wrong, right? We've been doing this for over 10 years. 15 years and beyond, yeah, I think that we were guilty of a lot of these things. But 10 years ago, we were on this train.
That's true. You know, I have a bad sense of time and my memory is kind of lacking. Thank you for correcting me on that.
I try to whenever I can. All
Yeah.
right, we're going to roll into my thing. After talking about, trying to gauge the cost of special inspections last week, I was asked by a couple of people, what the heck is a special inspection? And so I want to just, take a little time and differentiate between the types of inspections we're doing on our projects. Um, what everybody in this country is familiar with is having like a city official come out and do an inspection for the trades on a job. And the trades means framing, plumbing, electrical. That plumbing, that mechanical inspection, that covers a few things. It's covering any HVAC systems you're doing. It's covering all of the plumbing for your sinks and your toilets. It's also covering things like fans. So fans in a bathroom, fans for a kitchen hood. Those are all covered under that trade. So it's a broad sweep of what your local jurisdiction, whether it's a city or a county, is looking at. And they are putting a second set of eyes on your work, the contractor's work, to ensure that they're doing things to match the approved set of plans, as well as the current building code as far as they're enforcing it in that jurisdiction. A special inspection is reserved typically for critical structural elements. So that would include things like your concrete, welding on the job, uh, for steel. It includes bolting, like when you attach your house to a foundation. Those are some of the critical structural things that they are looking at. And that's not your city official. That's a third party independent firm that's sending a registered and qualified person out to put a second, third set of eyes on the work that's happening. This all started as a safety check, especially on larger public projects after some historic catastrophes in the building industry. And so you can imagine if you're building a hospital or a school or a high rise, things become a lot more critical. That's all spilled over into the residential world. And, now there are more and more special inspections happening on our projects. And I think that a lot of them are well deserved, like making sure that our concrete is properly mixed. I think that's an important thing to do. When we started off, we used to do like a good way to test if the work is up to requirements was to do a random sampling. So, for instance, if we were doing anchor bolts, bolting a house to a foundation, our special inspection would be a requirement that said 10% of all the bolts we put in need to have a pull test. And it's a great way to keep your contractor honest and go and test the work that they've done to make sure that it's standing up to the requirements as called out in the plans. And that's morphed now, and this is what we were talking about last week, into a constant observation of the work. And in our opinion, in the residential world, that's maybe a step too far. But that's kind of what a special inspection is. We also talked about things like our Title 24 in our Green Building Code. All of those requirements that we're doing here in California, which range from the type of windows we're using or the type of insulation, all of that stuff needs to be looked at by an independent inspector as well. That's kind of the what's a special inspection answer.
Nice. Ooh, I didn't turn my ringer off. Well, man, you're speaking facts there. I like that. There wasn't really much of a rant. There was no complaining about something. I wasn't sure if that was going to come out, but I liked it.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to complain. I was just trying to, a lot of people don't really understand what this is. So I'm just trying to differentiate between like the two big sets, like the critical structural stuff, and then the city official who's looking at our work to make sure we're living up to the current code.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you said something in your little talk there about pull tests. I don't think people know what that is. Let the people know what is a pull test.
So if you had an existing foundation and you wanted to positively connect the framing of the house to the concrete foundation, you would drill into the foundation, drill through the framing, the mud sill, if you will, that sits on top of the concrete. You would drill a hole down into the concrete. You would embed a piece of threaded rod that's set in epoxy, and that is there's a force, an uplift force that needs to resist. That's called out by the engineer. So, whatever that may be, let's say it's 10,000 pounds, they're putting a machine on to actually physically pull that bolt at 10,000 pounds, and they make sure that it doesn't come out. And if you fail, you've got to start over.
Well, thanks. Well, you people out there might have gained some knowledge there. You might be asleep. I'm not sure, but I enjoyed it myself. Well, thank you for that. Moving on to the final topic of our podcast here, which is something interesting happening on a project. I like this topic today. We're on a project right now where we're coming into the home stretch. We have installed countertops, and then we're going to kind of do our paint touch up and putting in our finishes. We really have about a week and a half left on this project. But this topic is about countertops and expectations. And for us, look, we've been in the trades for a long time. I started in 2005, and my point is there's lots of things that Pace and I can picture and understand in the blink of an eye. And we realize that clients don't have that same experience. So we really do as much as we can to create expectations, explain what things will look like, um, and that way everybody's on the same page. But as much as we do that, it can still be difficult for people, and we understand that. And so what happened here on this project is we had a situation where we had existing cabinets where the existing countertop was glued right to the cabinet boxes. So we did our best to explain what this final product would look like with the countertops once they were installed. And we went ahead and templated for everything. And the countertop people came and did their fabrication and did their installation. And the next day, we got a call from the client that they were just really unhappy with the final product. They had just imagined something else. Even though we do our best to communicate what something will look like in the end, sometimes you just miss the mark. And this was nobody's fault. And we came up with a solution to correct this, and we went ahead and did that. And in the end, the clients are really happy. It did cost a little bit of additional money, but sometimes that's the price you got to pay to get things the way you want them. And that's kind of what happened on this job.
Yeah, it's interesting. The experience and the fact that we do something every day and we're constantly visualizing, we're constantly, building these things. It's a lot of this stuff just becomes second nature to us, and it's important to always remember that a homeowner, may do this once or twice in their lives, and so they don't think about things certainly the same way. So just making sure that we all get to the finish line together, so to speak, I think is the message here, right? It doesn't do anybody any good if we move fast. We have to make sure it's just like being a teacher in some ways, right? Like if you get to the end of the course, of course you know the information and you can pass the test, but all your students got to pass the test too. So I think that making sure that the homeowners are on the same page every step of the way, it's just important.
Yeah, you're right. The message here is communication, which we did do here, but the other message is working together, coming up with a solution, and making sure that our client is happy in the end, no matter what. Right? I mean, some of you out there might be wondering, well, what happened? Like, what does the countertop look like? What did she not like? That's not the point of this. We're going to skip that part. The point is the clients love it now, and we got to a happy place.
Yeah, I think that listening really is the important thing here, right? Just listening to what the problem is, what people are unhappy with and then coming up with a solution that pleases everybody.
Yeah, that's right, Pace. It's all about the happy client at the end, and that's what we pride ourselves on, communicating, getting to a good end result. But I guess that about wraps it up today. I'm Adam.
And on pace,
Thank you.
to you.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.